The iPhone SE is dead. Long live iPhone 16e. This was a pretty interesting smartphone announcement, and I'm not going to bore you by going over all of the details that I'm sure you're familiar with, like the fact that this thing is basically the screen of an iPhone 14 with an A18 chip inside it, a single 48 megapixel camera squeezed into a kind of hybrid chassis. No, I want to talk about why this phone is weird. Now, the first thing that you'll notice is that this is by no means an iPhone SE. It is a $600 entry-level version of the iPhone 16 that in many ways shares a lot of its DNA with the ideas behind the iPhone SE. But unlike the iPhone SE, Apple developed new components for this phone. It looks visually different from any other recent iPhone because of the single camera, and Apple has developed their first cellular modem. So this phone really raises a lot of questions for me, and I noticed some really fascinating tidbits when I was pouring through the press release and the comparison page for this iPhone. So today I want to break all of that down, but let's get into it right after a word from today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by UBG, the app that lets you easily get eSIM data plans in more than 200 destinations. There are no out-of-pocket surprise roaming charges, meaning you can travel with peace of mind. Plus, if you run out of data while away from Wi-Fi, no problem. UBG is the only eSIM app that's rechargeable even without a Wi-Fi connection or remaining data left in your plan. SIM plans are offered by region and country, so you can easily find SIMs for multi-destination travels, and it even allows data sharing amongst your other devices. Setting up is super easy and takes just a few seconds. Just install your eSIM first and then select the plan you want. UBG makes things fast and effortless, and right now you can use promo code Luke to get 10% off your first purchase. So check out the link in the description below to learn more about UBG. A big thanks to them for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get back to it. Alright, so let's dive in with the weird and interesting tidbits that I was able to find about the new iPhone 16e. And the first one has to do with that cellular modem, because I think this is the most interesting piece of tech in this entire phone. For years, Apple has been using Qualcomm's modems, but we've been hearing for a couple of years now that they're developing their own, and now we finally get to see it. But the main benefits for doing something like this are A, to increase vertical control over the supply chain, and B, to use the benefits of Apple Silicon to provide better battery life. And that's where things get very interesting, because this new modem isn't a direct replacement for the Qualcomm ones. I was going through the comparison page when I noticed that the iPhone 16e does not seem to have any ultra-wideband support. And that makes it the only iPhone since the iPhone 12 that is missing this feature. Now, I don't think this is a big deal, because let's be honest, how many times have you actually used 5G ultra-wideband since it became available on the iPhone more than 4 years ago? Probably not super often. But something else that stood out to me was when Apple was talking about the increased battery life afforded by this new modem, because it's not just the efficient modem that is causing those gains. Apple also redesigned the internal structure of the iPhone 16e to allow for a larger battery. And that is really weird, because the iPhone SE was always about reusing as many parts as possible. There was almost never anything new about those phones. But the iPhone 16e has features that the iPhone 16 doesn't even have, like this new modem and a redesigned internal structure. Also unusual is the fact that the 16e actually has better battery life than the regular iPhone 16. They're quoting 26 hours of video playback up from 22. They're quoting 21 hours of streamed video playback up from 18, and an extra 10 hours of audio playback as well. So the stripped down version of the iPhone 16 has better battery life and a more efficient modem, but also is missing a camera, missing some of the newer features, the camera control button, for example. But then we learned something else. the action button can now access visual intelligence, which was one of the main selling points for the camera control button. So now it's kind of like, do you even need that button? Most people I know find it to be annoying. So maybe if you just use visual intelligence with the action button, you completely replace any need for camera control. And then there's the fact that the iPhone 16e is using the A18 chip, but it's not the same A18 chip that you'd find in other iPhone 16s. I almost didn't catch this, but looking through the comparison page, you can see that the iPhone 16e has a 4-core GPU instead of the 5 cores in the iPhone 16 and 6 cores in the 16 Pro. So not even the chip is the same as all the other phones. And that brings me to my main problem with the iPhone 16e. I think there are some new technologies here that I wasn't expecting and am curious to see. The better battery life, the action button, being able to do visual intelligence, and of course that new cellular modem chip. But at the same time, I think Apple might have missed the mark here. At $600, this is no longer a budget phone like the iPhone SE was. That $429 price point put it in a completely different category. But for $600, this just feels confusing. Should I buy the iPhone 16e, or should I spend paradoxically more money to get an iPhone 15, which is missing some features but gains others? Or should I spend $200 more to get the regular iPhone 16? The problem is there are too many phones with too few differences in this narrow price band, and realistically, none of these phones are targeted at high awareness technology enthusiasts. You or I might be able to sit here and go, iPhone 15 has a mute switch, 16e has an action button, and 16 has an action button and a camera control. The iPhone 15 is on the A16 chip. The iPhone 16e is on the A18 chip with one less GPU core than the iPhone 16 on the also A18 chip with an additional GPU core. iPhone 15 has a dynamic island, 16e doesn't. The iPhone 16 does again, but the iPhone 16e without the dynamic island has the better battery life of all three phones, better than the 15 and the 16. The average consumer is going to be so freaking confused by this. Why is the cheapest phone better and worse than the newer and older, more expensive phones? What? It's just too much. It's too much, dude. I don't really know how to describe it other than too much. The benefit of the iPhone SE was that it was cheap. You didn't buy it because of features. You bought it because you wanted an iPhone that would get software updates for years to come at the lowest possible price. And the iPhone 16e is not that. It is yet another mid-range iPhone with a confusing suffix and a list of features that doesn't make sense to most people. It's not a back-to-basics smartphone that you buy when you don't know what else to get. It's just another confusing addition to the middle ground, the $500 to $800 smartphone range. And frankly, I think that this was a bad move. I don't know. I really want to get my hands on this phone because I think as a phone, it will probably be very good. But as a part of Apple's iPhone lineup, I think it just adds confusion. I'd love to know what you guys think, so leave a comment down below. And of course, be sure to subscribe because I'm going to be reviewing this thing once it comes out. So we'll see if it can justify its existence. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.